Hi everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick, and this is Exotics Anonymous, and I'm filming a video today. I want to talk about all the high-end SUVs and how they kind of stack up against each other, because I've been lucky to spend a lot of time in all of them now, except the Ferrari Purosangue. I've been in one, but not for very long, and I haven't driven it, so I don't have a lot to say about it, but based on what I've heard from other people, I can kind of make assumptions. Let's start with the one that everybody knows, the Lamborghini Urus. The Urus, everyone says it's an RSQ8 with some Lamborghini touches, and that makes it an extra $100,000 essentially. And while there's some truth to that, it shares parts, they all share parts together, honestly. I still think it's a more premium option than the RSQ8. I've spent more time in an RSQ8 than a Urus, and I think if I was just getting one of them, I wasn't paying for it, I would definitely want the Urus. But even if I was paying for it, I think I would hold out for a Urus, because the RSQ8 just doesn't feel very special. I don't know. Wow, a very loud Corvette just went by me. Sorry about that. The SQ8 is so much more fun to drive than an RSQ8 for some reason. I don't know if you can ring it out more before you have to slow down, because it's not as fast, but it's still pretty fast. It sounds better for some reason. I don't know. The RSQ8 just doesn't feel like it has any special sauce to it, really. And then you get in the Urus, and yeah, it's a lot of the same parts, and they drive pretty similar, but it's got the Lamborghini badge, it's got a different steering wheel than the RSQ8. It just feels a little more exciting. You see the Lambo badge on your headrest behind your head if you look in the mirror or something. It just feels like a more special place to be, and a more exciting place to be. So for me personally, Urus and RSQ8, yes, they have all the same features, but now that the Urus market has come down a bit, they're not 300 grand anymore, they're starting to dip into the mid 100s. They're starting to make a lot more sense. RSQ8s are still about 90 to 100, so there's still a price premium, but it's not as bad as it was before, where it was an $140,000 increase to get one. So I think the Urus is starting to make a lot more sense. They ride very nice. They are fast, but not as fast as, say, an Aston Martin DBX707. They sound good, actually, especially the facelifted ones, like the Urus S and the Urus Performante. Those sound really good. So Urus, I think it's a little too much hate for being it is, the same parts and everything as an RSQ8, but it's also the same parts as a Cayenne Turbo and a Bentley Bentayga, so they all share the same parts. It's kind of which one do you like. So we covered the Urus a little bit. RSQ8, same thing, same features as the Urus. Doesn't sound as good, and I think the steering feels a little weird, personally. It feels a little weird in the Urus too, but better than in the RSQ8. But for me, between those two, I'd side slightly more towards Urus, especially a Urus S. I haven't been in a new RSQ8 Performance yet. Maybe that'll fix some of the problems, because I did just find the RSQ8 to drive very strange. So maybe that addresses it. But let's move on to Cayenne Turbo. Cayenne Turbo, I was very impressed by when I drove one. I wasn't expecting a lot out of it. It sounded better than a Urus or an RSQ8. I drove the SE hybrid one, the 700 horsepower, so it's a twin turbo V8 and the hybrid. It was fast. It was really fast. It did feel a little number than I was expecting, but it's a Porsche. It's supposed to be pretty surgical and very precise and everything, and it was, and it felt like it. You don't have the same flare feeling when you're driving one of those as you do. The one I drove was white with brown interior. It was kind of a bland spec, not my favorite. So maybe the spec just ruined it a little for me. But if there was a nicely equipped one, that car's a lot of fun. I think they're a little too expensive. I haven't looked recently at what those cost, but I knew they're high $100,000. So that's a lot, because now you're getting near a Urus in terms of price, but you don't get the prestige that comes with the Lamborghini badge. So I don't know, Cayenne Turbo, I like them a lot. Used, I think they're a very interesting proposition, because I know you can get them into the, what are they, about 70 grand for a clean used one, I think, last time I looked. That's an interesting price. But, a new one, I would not want to take that depreciation hit, because they're going to depreciate heavily, they always do. But that's okay, because, they're a great value used. So we've talked about Urus, we've talked about RSQ8, we've talked about Cayenne Turbo. We have not talked about the Bentley Bentayga yet, and I've been very lucky to experience pretty much every trim of the Bentayga. My favorite one is the V8S. It's the same, well, they say it's the same horsepower as the V8. It's this weird thing where when it came out, they said it was going to have 570 horsepower, but then by the time they actually reached dealers, they were saying the same 542 that the normal Bentayga V8 has. So does it make a little more power and they just don't say it? Maybe it's probably an emissions thing. The interior quality of that car is by far the most special place to sit out of the 4 from Volkswagen Group. It's not as fast as a Urus or a Turbo, Cayenne Turbo, RSQ8. It's not as fast as any of them. It sounds better than any of them. The V8S with the sports exhaust, it sounds crazy. But you also get like that Bentley like luxuriness that like you just, whenever I drive a Bentayga, I just feel so relaxed. And I can't say the same thing about a Urus or a Cayenne or RSQ8 or anything like that. So out of the 4, I think my favorite is the Bentayga V8S, honestly. Maybe a Urus S, but I haven't driven that one yet, so I can't say. But the Bentayga V8S I spent a lot of time with, and I loved it. You're relaxed, but you can also have a lot of sporty fun. So, best of both worlds. They're depreciating nicely now. I mean, those cars were $270 grand new. A clean used one is already into the 160s like a year and a half later. So, give it another year, those will probably be near 100. That's a lot of car at that price point. Now let's talk about the options from Aston Martin and Ferrari, because this is where it gets interesting. We'll start with the DBX707, because that car is like so unexpectedly good, it's not even funny. I remember the first time that I was in a DBX707, it was like, I felt like I was in something like a AMG GT63S, like a super sedan, but it was an SUV. Very fast. It does the same exact launch control that like all the AMGs do, so it's very easy to do and fun. That car, it pulls harder the faster you go. Like you think you're gonna run out of room, and then like you hear the turbo spool up even more or something, and it just pulls and pulls and pulls. That car is phenomenal. It's missing some features that like the Bentayga or the Urus have. For example, and I think this is ridiculous, no heads-up display in a $300,000 daily driver SUV. That's a joke. The sunroof doesn't open. They just added the soft closed doors on the refresh. Like there's so much stuff that car needs that it doesn't have at that price point that it should. But they just refreshed it. Like I said, the interior is much better now. They fixed some of the cheap looking buttons that were in the middle before. So they've done good stuff on it. Still no heads-up display. Would probably keep me out of one, honestly, because at that price point, I don't want to have to take my eyes off the road with a 700 horsepower, 5,500 pound monster. But I love how that car drives. Best driving SUV, hands down, no question. I have not driven the Purosangue, but we're kind of going into this. The Purosangue, yeah, it's an SUV. It's really a crossover, and honestly, it feels like a GTC4 Lusso that they just put like an SUV crossover-y body on. It doesn't have nearly as much room in it as like a Bentayga or a DBX707. Like maybe they quote certain statistics for the cargo volume, whatever, but when you see one in person, it's just not as roomy inside. The back seats are pretty tight, honestly, but they look cool, don't get me wrong. The V12 driving experience, completely unique to any of those SUVs. Like, you're not getting anything that drives like that with some utility to it, Like, I know that they're supposed to be compared to a Bentayga or a DBX707, but really I feel like more apt comparison for one of those cars would be like an RS6 or like a Panamera Sport Turismo E63S. Like, it's more of like a fast wagon that it's lifted up a little bit, But that V12 is unique to that, and it's sounds amazing. Everything I've seen about it, it seems like it's great to drive. It's not really an SUV, Like when I think of an SUV, I think of something big that I can use for stuff. That car, I feel like I would treat that as like a weekend car. Like that's not like I just don't see that as a daily driving car. And most people that drive them seem to say that it's not very comfortable for daily driving, but because of that suspension being a little on the stiffer side, it's great, on some curvy roads, but in your day-to-day you feel a lot of stuff from the road coming through. So Purosangue, probably pretty great to drive, but not really like a real SUV like some of these other ones. It's got all the features and stuff that the other ones have. I know it has a heads-up display. I know it's got all the technology, probably too much technology in those. The steering wheel, that haptic wheel, is so frustrating that I don't really think, I think they went a little too far with the technology. But everything else about it seems pretty good. A lot of people didn't like the suicide doors that it has. It doesn't bother me, but it is a little strange. Like usually that's a Rolls-Royce thing, or like a Continental randomly. But I don't know. Purosangue seems great, but the problem with it, it's like $600,000 if you're getting one around sticker for like a nicely equipped one. And I know like used ones have recently been selling for close to $1 million. $1 million, you could buy all 4 of the ones from Volkswagen Group, like brand new. actually, I mean, yeah, that's probably right. And if you're buying used ones, you could just start stacking up these things. You don't buy 6 of them for one Purosangue. Or, you know, if you're going to blow 600 grand, go pick up a supercar that you want, like a 720S, and then, you know, a nice Bentayga or something. It's just ridiculous money-wise. But you're getting the Ferrari brand. They'll probably hold their value pretty well. There are rumors that a hybrid one is going to come out with the 296 powertrain in it, which, if they do, will probably be faster than the V12 one, which would be interesting if they do that. But, you know, maybe that'll make them a little more commonplace, and it'll be a, you know, instead of $600,000, maybe it'll be $400,000. Still ridiculous, because that's more than any of the other SUVs, but at least there'll be a slightly, you know, more usable at a daily price entry into the brand. But people buying the Ferraris don't really care. They're buying it because, you know, they want the Ferrari brand on there. So that is what that is. But it's a very interesting segment, these like luxury monster SUVs. If I had to take one myself personally, it would depend on my situation a little bit. Like if I have another, like if I have a supercar, say I have a McLaren 720S, I'd probably end up taking the Bentayga, probably the V8S one, because I don't need my SUV at that point to also be my sports car. But if I needed my SUV to be my sports car, and I could only, like, I just have one car, I probably would take the DBX707 despite not having the heads-up display or the opening sunroof, because it really drives a lot more like a sports car than it does an SUV. Whereas the other ones, they're like, you know, they're all SUVs, and you know they're SUVs, they're heavy. The DBX is just like, they sprinkled some magic on that thing and made it dynamic in all situations, faster than most sports cars, sports sedans, whatever. Obviously, it's not as fast as a 720S, but it's faster than a lot of other stuff. So that's my take on it. It'll be interesting to see what these cars kind of start depreciating to, as now a lot of them are getting out of factory warranty. So I'm sure they'll probably fall another 20% as soon as that happens. And that's where they can start becoming interesting propositions for using them every day, because it sucks to buy a $300,000 car and use it every day and just lose 150 grand, unless you're, you know, a multi-millionaire. That's going to be pretty annoying. So it'll be cool to see where they start to settle out at. Maybe they start to make sense in the future. And hopefully this kind of helped you compare and contrast any if you're in this market or looking to be in that market anytime soon. And hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please look at the other videos I put up on the channel and subscribe. I'd love to have you stick around for future content. And yeah, thanks for watching.